everyone. So I'm super excited about this new conversation we're having for the month of December. We are going through John Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership, and I'm super passionate about this topic. For some of you that know my story, I feel like this year has been a part of my leadership journey is succeeding through others, and so being able to chat about this conversation. I'm super excited about it. So, anyways, today's law is the law of the lid, which basically says the leadership ability of someone determines a person's level of effectiveness. And I think this is a great place to start because really we have to ask the question, right? Why study leadership in the first place, right? Why study it? Because maybe I consider myself not a leader. Well, we got the ALC people that are members that are leaders. Smokey Garrett's our leader. Um, Bobby's the leader. Candace's the leader. I don't need to lead, right? And yet, it's not if we lead, but when and where we lead. Because we lead, we have moments where we're leading, even when we maybe not expect it. At home, we're leading as parents. We're leading our families. Um, Although I will sometimes say, because I teach 5 and 6 year olds at church, that sometimes it's the kids that are leading the home and not the family. But yeah, no, as parents, we're supposed to be leading our kids. In our businesses, even as individual agents, we got to lead ourselves to be successful in this business. We're leading our clients to earn their trust, to set a vision, a strategy, and navigate them through these challenging times. And even in our industry, uh, if we've been in the industry a little bit longer than others, we're leading new agents, right, that look up to us for guidance and as a role model. So here's this interesting fact about me. When I was in college and I started dating my wife, Leanne, um, I really had no background in leadership, right? So I was just kind of very passive, that typical, hey, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And so my wife, having the gift of candor, she calls it out and she goes, "Hey, Daniel, you need to step up in your leadership game. If you are serious about this relationship, I want you to be the leader in our relationship." And this is my response, right? It didn't go too well. I said, well, if you want to lead, you can lead. Feel free at it, right? She's like, that's not gonna work, right? So literally, I just didn't have any experience in leadership, right? I did not even know what leadership was about. And so my natural inclination was thinking, well, I'm not a natural born leader, so therefore I'm not a leader. And yet, what I didn't realize was that's a limiting belief about myself. So John Maxwell in his book, he says, leadership is learned. And when I read that statement, it was literally on one of the first chapters of one of the books I had, like it blew that ceiling off. It blew that limiting belief off and I said, even though I didn't feel like I was a natural born leader, I could be developed and grown into one. Even natural born leaders, right? Even though they have that gift when they're born, it still has to be cultivated. It still has to be developed. So you know what? We know that everything rises and falls with leadership. So there was a story of two young brothers back in 1930. Their names were Dick and Maurice, and they moved from New Hampshire to California in search of an American dream. And they struggled in the business with at the beginning because they had an entrepreneurial spirit, but they were trying to start something and they just weren't able to make it profitable. And so in 1937, they finally struck something that worked. They opened a small drive-in restaurant in Pasadena. And people had become very dependent on cars. The culture was changing to accommodate that. And so as a perfect timing, as society was becoming more mobile and fast paced, that they had this little drive-in restaurant. And so they were super successful. They moved the business to San Bernardino, 50 miles east of LA, had a larger facility. They expanded their menu to hot dogs, fries, or from hot dogs and fries to barbecue sandwiches, hamburgers. Their annual sales reached $200,000, right? That's a lot of money at that time. Brothers split 50K profit every year. In 1948, the times started changing again, and they made some more modifications. They got rid of the car hops. They streamlined everything just to focus on selling hamburgers. They eliminated the plates, the glassware, the metal, the utensils, just used paper products. They reduced their costs so they could reduce the cost of the consumers. And they created a system so that their kitchen was like an assembly line. And in the mid 1950s, their annual revenue hit 350K. Who were these brothers? They were Dick and Maurice McDonald. They started McDonald's. But guess what? They had a lid on their leadership. They hit a ceiling. They wanted to continue to expand, but they could not. What that happened was they were good restaurant owners, efficient managers, but lacked the leadership necessary to take it further. So eventually they sold up to, I think they had 15 buyers on the franchises, but only 10 of them opened up restaurants and they got stuck there. And what happened was they partnered with someone else and eventually sold McDonald's to a guy named Ray Kroc. And Ray Kroc was the one to lead McDonald's to where they are today. So between 1955 and 1959, he opened up 100 restaurants. And now, today, there are more than 20,000 restaurants in 100 countries. And all of it was about the leadership ability, which, or more specifically, in the original McDonald brothers, a lack of leadership put a lid on their effectiveness. So the reality is this, is that the higher you climb, the more you need leadership. The greater the impact that you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be. So whatever you will accomplish is restricted by your ability to lead others. But you can raise your leadership ability without raising the work that you have to do. And that can still increase your original effectiveness. So like, if you think of, okay, my leadership ability is just a one. Well, for me to achieve success, I got to probably do 10 out of 10 in terms of working hard. Or I can just say, even if I want to work at 7 out of 10, but I raise my leadership lid, actually I multiply my effectiveness in that regards. So really, as we think about growing as a leader, right? It's one of those things that it's not just optional, we must continue to grow. Even when we talk about organizations, to change the direction of an organization, what do? They change the leader, right? Because leadership ability is always a lid, not just on personal, but even organizational effectiveness. That's why, when times of trouble, organizations, they look for new leaders. So if we think sports, right? If the sports team is not doing well, they change the coach, they change the GM. And if they still keep losing, if they look for a new coach and they fire the coach and they still keep losing, they look for a new general manager. What is the lid of the Cowboys? Jerry Jones. He's the GM, right? GM and owner. Because guess what? 30 years since the last Super Bowl, only 4 playoff wins in the last 25 years. And guess what Jerry can't do? He cannot fire the GM, right? He can't make those changes. And that's created a lid on the Cowboys. The bad news is this. We all have lids. We will all hit ceilings of achievements and ceilings in our leadership. The good news, though, is we can raise our lids. So my encouragement in this season, in December, and even into next year, is come on a leadership journey with us. Come ride with us. Have a posture to grow in your leadership. Know that your lid can hinder your effectiveness where you're at, and yet our hope is actually to raise each one of us, our lids, our effectiveness, so that we can be everything we were created to be. That's what I got.